Oh, I've got a call that time. That was pretty quick. Set that down. I don't want to burn my wrestling mat. Oh, I got two. Ended up getting 2 coals. So that's a pump drill. So I'll show how it's made here in just a second. This is 88 inches of cordage. You don't need that much. You can go with much less, but I'm going to show you why I have it. This is my spindle. So my spindle is going to be about 26 inches. So you notice from there to the tip, we're looking at about 26 inches. Then the lever that I'm using to press down that the cordage is going to be tied to, we're looking at about 24 inches. And then we have the weight itself. So this is 1.4 pounds. Let's go ahead and go over the construction of this. Get my knife real quick. So there's a couple things you can do with the spindle. If you don't have, if your spindle is much larger, but you don't have a weight that can keep it spinning, then you can trim down the end of the spindle. So you can trim down the last 2 inches of it to get it to the size that you need. That's a 1/2 inch in diameter, the one that I'm using. That's about the size that I would use for any hand drill. That would be perfect. 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit below that. So if this one's too large and you're getting too much friction in the fireboard, then you can always trim that down. A couple different ways. Obviously you're not going to have tape out in the wild, but you can make a series of scores, like you can score around that with your knife, cutting into it, or with the saw, not too deep, and then tie cordage onto that. So your weight would come down and stop where the cordage is, and the cordage would stop it. That's one way. If you have a larger one, you can trim this part down and then slide it up to the thicker part and then slam it into there instead. And that way you can keep the thickness on the spindle if you want it, and not have to trim all of that down. That will work with a weight that is only 1.5 pounds. Heavier weights may fall off over time. The other method would be not only to trim this last 2 inches down, but to go just above it about 1 inch, and then score all of that back down so that you can slide your spindle all the way down to that part that you scored. So that's really kind of unnecessary for this sized weight. So I'm going to go ahead, since I slid that down, I'm going to bang that into place. Okay, that's good enough. That'll hold for right now. So now, move that over. Took my lever, trimmed out the center with my knife. So this is what I'm going to be pressing down on the spindle with. So that's going to go here, but I want to stop it so that I'm not running into my weight. So about 3-4 inches above that, that's where I want that to be. And it's good to kind of place it so that you can look at it, so that you get it into a position where you know that it's going to be long enough. So now I scored the edge of this on both sides so that my cordage wouldn't fall off. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off for now, because when we get ready to resize it, then I'll worry about that. So I'm going to make a clove hitch and then slide that over. Now this cordage here is terrible. It catches on everything. It's not my favorite type of cordage. So I'm trying to get it right down in that little groove, and then I'm going to cinch it down. Now you can go with less cordage, but you're probably going to need at least 6 feet or so. What I'm trying to avoid is trying to drill a hole through that the cordage goes through. That is an advantage if you have a thicker spindle, but with these thin spindles, you're going to find that that is problematic. You're going to have a really hard time not breaking your spindle. So now that I've put that clove hitch in place, I'm going to put at least 1 or 2 more. So I think I'll do 3. So there's another half hitch. I'm going to cinch that down, make it nice and tight, kind of dress it up a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing again. The reason I'm doing this is a clove hitch will shake loose. So I did 2 more half hitches. Probably unnecessary. And again, I don't want to have to mess with this. So I'm going to slide this into place, get it into position, bring it up here so that I know that that's the length that I'm looking for. And I'm going to do clove hitch again, because I can just slide it over the end. That's not the only way to tie a clove hitch, but when you can slide it over the end, that's the advantage, or one advantage of the clove hitch. So now I'm going to put another couple half hitches in. So I'm going to slide this down. Now I could have just looped that over. This is one way to do it. Like I could bring that in and then go over, but this is the method that I'm used to. Now sometimes you're not going to be able to slide the clove hitch over the end of a pole like this, and if that happens, you can still tie it another way. So now I need to look. Okay, yeah, that's going to be pretty good, because it's going to give me a little stretch. So what I'm doing is I am trimming that notch down so there's very little friction there for it to get caught up in. And that's mainly just due to the amount of weight that I'm using here, so I can get a lot of free spin on this. There we go. That's looking good. I may already have one. Yeah. So I probably get another one out of that.